I pray by a power that this world does not know. I fast by a power that humanity is not aware of.
Ephesians chapter 1 verse 3. Let's read together if you can see it projected. Ready? 1 to read. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who hath blessed us with all spiritual blessings. Say blessed. Say spiritual blessings. One more time. Say blessed. Say all spiritual blessings. This for me is the most concise capture of the word grace. Because any other attempt to define grace will only mean that you will have to compartmentalize grace. And while it is true that grace is manifold and multidimensional, the Bible here says God hath blessed us. And he says he blessed us with all spiritual blessings. So my definition of grace is all spiritual blessings. All spiritual blessings that have been given to the believer to produce a life of victory, but it is accessed only through the office and the person of the Christ. All spiritual blessings made available to the believer for a victorious life, but then it is accessed only through the office of the Christ. This is my definition of grace. So grace is not just limited to sufficiency. It is not just limited to favor. It is not just limited to access. It is all-encompassing. That means every spiritual blessing, please look up, every advantage that has been provided for the believer that can become an instrument of victory in your life is called grace. Every. That means power is grace. Wisdom is grace. Faith is grace. Provided it sustains the ability to translate to your victory, and it is only routed through the office of the Christ, it is called grace. If you do not have to consult the office of the Christ to access it, it is not grace. For it to be called grace, the office of the Christ must become the principal center point of administration. That means if you route that ability through another medium other than the Christ, it may be ability, but it is not called grace. It matters that it passes through the office of the Christ to be called grace. Are we together now? So if I see you displaying a semblance of wisdom, before we call that wisdom grace, we will have to vet whether that wisdom passed through the office of the Christ. And there is one litmus test. If it passes through the office of the Christ, then you are saddled with the responsibility of using it for your profiting, but to reveal Christ. So if we do not find the revelation of Christ captured in your display of spiritual abilities, we have a right to vet the source. It is not grace. Are we together now? It's important for us to have this frame of thinking. Again, let me repeat that when it is the grace of God, it generically refers to every spiritual blessing made available to the believer, but routed through the person and the office of the Christ. So if you go to a herbalist and you access power, that is not called grace, because the Christ factor is ignored in that process. Are we together? In fact, if your sufficiency comes from yourself, it does not matter the result it produces. It is not called grace. The moment Christ has to be isolated from that process, it no longer is called grace. Are we together? It is not the workability of the ability that makes it grace. It is the Christocentric character, the fact that Christ is not alienated from that process. That is what makes it grace. Are we together now?